live. I didn't even say hi to everybody because I was running late. John Anthony, I feel like you and I already did a podcast today. I'm a little tired.
I don't know why you would think that.
Oh my goodness, Jackie, you were there in our hearts and our minds. We know that you were working at 10 a.m. Otherwise, we would have loved to have you there, and you were invited. But
Very
next
much
time
working
for
at 10
sure.
a.m. No problems.
Thank you very much, all. Thank you, Johnny Anthony. I was gonna say, Johnny Anthony's got to give like a something. Um, Good evening. Good evening. I am Ryan. I am Coach Ryan. I am a people person. What is it? People. I'm a person, student,
Student
coach at
coach.
yes, student, person, coach at Flow State Martial Arts. And who are you, miss, at the lower half there?
I am Jackie, and I am a student coach and person at Flow State Martial Arts.
Who are you, sir?
I'm John Anthony Bachmanwitz, and I'm none of the above.
You're just Johnny
No,
Anthony.
I'm
Different
a
part. Different.
person, and I'm a student of life, and I'm happy to be here. And
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
thank
we're
you.
happy to have you, and I think we're all students of life, right? And that's kind of just what we're trying to do here at Flow State Off the Mats. We're about 3 months in. It was a little bumpy at the first, as things often are with anything, right? A business, a book, anything. The first couple weeks, months, year, even. You don't make a dime. You're lucky if you have a few people show interest, and the grind must continue. So, all of that being said, we're here, we're back. We said that we were going to go bi weekly, but we're feeling the rhythm and we've had some things come into play. And so we're back. And this week's topic, we're going to be talking about the fear beneath the anger. All right. So I'm going to read it as it's written here. The fear beneath the anger. And this is module 2. Okay. In John Anthony's program. Anger often masks deeper fears such as rejection, loss, or insecurity. I'm going to let John Anthony speak to that, but I just want to say real quick, and I think maybe you two can relate. Uh, Anger often masks deeper fears such as rejection, loss, or insecurity. I mean, to me, that's like the very surface. I mean, it can be a plethora of things, right? Things that we don't really know, things that we haven't even really thought about. But John Anthony, like I said, I'll let you speak to this module number 2 here in your program.
Well, the fear that comes before the anger is fear of losing something that I have, or the fear of not getting something I desire. And when we can recognize our fears, then we can address them. If we don't recognize them, then we're going to react to them. And when we react, that's when we're more likely to react from the amygdala part of the brain because it's frightened and sees fear. And then we're going to fight, we're going to flee, or we're going to freeze. We're not going to be able to think and have choices using the prefrontal cortex. We're not going to be able to access the memory, the part of the brain, the hippocampus, because that's just the way the brain is wired. When the amygdala fires, you don't access the other areas. That's like when you study for an exam and you know it the night before and you got the flashcards or whatever and you're just going like that, but it's a really big exam. And if you don't pass this, this is going to happen and that's not going to happen. And you get really frightened about if you pass or not. And you go there and you take the test. And all those questions that you were going off like this the night before are on that exam, but you can't recall the answers because we're firing from the amygdala. So if we take deep breaths and expand our abdomen so that it pushes against the vagus nerve that goes down our back wall and around our sides, then it can disengage us from the amygdala. Then we can access the thinking part and the memory part of the brain.
There's two things I want to say to that real quick, and the first thing is let's start with what you just said about taking that deep breath. I in my I hate to use this term, I do, but in my healing, I'm not healed. I'm not sure I'm ever going to be, but I'm getting a little bit better each day. I've learned to really take that deep breath, and I got to tell you something. I realized that at my worst, I just wasn't breathing properly. So when things would start to go wrong in my head, the oxygen was stuck here, not giving me any time right, to stop what comes out, right? What I do, right? It's just stuck. But when I started taking that deep breath, I was like, whoa, why is my oxygen level always stuck here? Right. And then I realized it was my thoughts. I wasn't breathing correctly. But going back to what you're saying about taking that deep breath and the importance of it. And then the next thing I want to say to what you said about the amygdala and not being able to like do anything in that moment. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, for those of you that might be trying to understand somebody who's facing some mental health challenges, um, in that moment, it's like I can see you, I can hear you. Something in me is churning and not the direction I want to go. And then you can have a really great support system that's saying, hey, you're fine, you're safe, but it's still locked. I can hear you, I can see you, but something in me, in my heart, it just can't let go right now. And so that's what I think we're going to talk about a little bit, tonight, as we've always been, is being patient with those individuals. And then one more thing regarding the amygdala, that's one thing that we talk about in fight training, mixed martial arts, boxing, in particular, because we talk about those later rounds when a fighter is being challenged. And usually the knockout that comes from the individual that was losing in that moment is a basic 1-2, 1-2-3, something that they trained relentlessly, that their body put into play when their brain just couldn't pull things together, if that makes sense. And so that's why, sometimes people have a little bit of a trouble understanding how John Anthony and I meet with martial arts and his program. And there's a number of reasons, but I wanted to use that example to talk about how fear affects even the most well-trained combat individuals. So I've said a lot here. Jackie, John Anthony, I'm going to take a pause with my amygdala and fight.
I didn't know that because you hear when you're very worked up, take a breath, take a breath. I didn't really know it had like scientific evidence that like it really worked, as you were explaining, John, Anthony, about the expansion of the chest cavity and everything like that. I had no idea like there was actual like medical and scientific effects that like it actually improved that part of the brain. So I learned something today. And then also like as Ryan is saying, when going through a moment you're forgetting to breathe, and that's definitely how I can feel sometimes when I'm stuck in anxiety. Like a few minutes can go by and I'm like, my chest is not I'm breathing because obviously I'm not passed out on the floor, but my chest is not expanding at all. Like I'm really forgetting to take proper breaths. So interesting. I've learned something.
Yeah, I think, John Anthony, I think you once told me that Vanna has experience in coaching breathing, or at least promotes it or practices it in some way to help relieve stress and tension.
Yeah, right. She's read about that and uses that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it really, I think it's really one of the most underrated tools, sitting by yourself. No music, right? Not even your music. Sit by yourself and take the time to take those deep breaths, right? My mom was talking earlier to John Anthony and I. For those of you that don't know, she is a family therapist and an attorney. She's a very smart woman with over 40 years of experience in her field itself. And I always like to give her credit for not just what she's done in her practice, but at 40 years, we're here in the year 2026. You've lived through a lot. You've seen the opioid epidemic, right? You've seen suicide take the toll that it has on families, right? You've seen anger. We've seen COVID. She's seen so many things. And to hear her still give insight on topics that are starting to form today is always very, I'm going to just use the word cool. I have no other way to put it. To hear her mind working, to hear that, all these years later, she's still not slacking. She was speaking about how she feels that us as individuals are simply overstimulated from everything, and I was just upstairs thinking in the room, I was sitting with my family a few moments ago. I'm going to be honest, gang. I was thinking about what my mom was saying about overstimulated, and I was like, I got 3 kids. God bless me. Thank you for my beautiful babies. All 3 are on 3 different devices. That means 3 different noises are going, and they're eating ice cream that they just got from a school event. And that's fine, right? They're allowed to do that. But in my head, I'm thinking to myself, there was a time in society when TV was new in the living room and there was one thing running, and it was that show. Not three, not three. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that these little things, they can be beneath the surface sometimes. And they could be agitating something I'm not even really aware of. But what I can tell you is that I was like, it's 7:30 at night and I'm starting to get overstimulated. And here's where I'm at in my life. I've been a parent for 20 years and I know that this is part of parenting. But the thing I do to kind of not make myself feel bad, if that makes sense, is I tell myself, I took them to school. I fed them many times. I've loved them. I've kept my patience. I've gone to Jade's thing at Sam Cam. I've gone to the school event at school. That was my third time at school today. I love it. I love my life. I do. I'm tired. I'm done. It's 8 o'clock at night. I'm done. I want to go do my podcast. And then after that, I'm doing nothing. But I think that that's important to make sure that we, take care of what's going on beneath so that it doesn't come to the surface. I'm ranting now. What do you two got?
What's coming to my mind is that we skipped my wellness tip, which would have fit in really great.
Oh my goodness!
Talking about.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Hang on. I almost skipped it. We got astrology and well-being with Coach Jackie. Let's go.
No, because now I just think like I was gonna like let it go and be like, all right,
no.
I'll save it for next week. But what you're talking about seems like it would really tie in really well.
Segue.
So, okay, the full moon was upon us, and as we know, full moon is about releasing what no longer serves us. So the wellness tip, the title of this week is Processing and Releasing.
Okay.
Is the title. So this week, instead of asking what more can I do, it's great to be busy, it's great to be productive, but sometimes we need to ask, what can I let go of? So some self-care practices for this week is to, one, more mental and not physical, is to do a mental declutter. Take note of your worries and decide what is worth your energy. Don't worry twice. What is in our control now? Are we worrying about things that are in the future? That's, not a today problem. It could be a tomorrow problem or next week. A second one is that be gentle and honest with yourself. Notice where you may be overextending yourself with things to do. So just, we're talking about overstimulation. It's great to be productive and to have things to do, but sometimes are we spreading ourselves too thin? Are we overextending ourselves? As you said, when you're done this podcast, you said, I'm going to go do nothing. And I went, I feel that. That's great for you. You go do nothing. Like, I can't wait. So happy. And then my last one, is this title, to close small loops. So I know we talk about maybe, to lessen our load, but sometimes to lessen our load, it is completing the small tasks. So we don't put it all because, something that I can do, that's little, I'll just do it later. But now I have 10 things to do later. Now I have 20 things to do later. So if we take those things to just, close the small loops and to just complete those small tasks, we're not left with a huge plate of things to do tomorrow morning. As I always say, help your future self. Tip for the week.
Well, listen, I was going to say, I think about you every morning when I get back to my home and get out of my car, because there is at least 2 items in my passenger seat that need to be recycled at that moment. So instead of saying to myself, I'm going to get them later, I walk around to the other side, I grab those 2 things, I walk them back to the recycling bin, and I put them in there. Because I'm going to say something, I want to add to what you said, because I think that they're really big, but at least they have helped me. For those of you that don't know, I can't say it without Coach Jackie in the summer. I'm adopted. And I remember Coach Jackie's being like, why do you keep saying you're adopted? Well, okay, I'm adopted. But, when it comes to what Coach Jackie said about closing loops, I thought I was doing myself a favor by telling myself I will answer all of my text messages when I have the energy. And I think that that's a really great tip. But I think sometimes you need to have a talk with yourself and ask yourself, what is the realistic nature of your life? And the realistic nature is that I am blessed to have 3 mothers that are alive. a father that is alive. I have a 20-year-old daughter that is living on her own. Um, I have two. I've my sister. So I have two sisters and two brothers. One talks to me. And so my point is that I kept saying, I'll get back to them when I have the energy. I'll get back to them when I have the energy. And then I realized that 2 or 3 days had gone by, and I would realize that I was starting to get agitated. And why? Because my guilt was starting to set in. I wasn't closing the small loops,
Yeah.
right? And so now I've said to myself,
same thing.
what do you say?
I said I have one text I haven't gotten back to yet that I'm like, oh, I'll do it later, and then I always forget, and then it's like I have that guilt like coming up.
Yeah, well, I listen, I've told myself this is the reality of your life and you're blessed, meaning me, and so I make the effort to just close those loops, right? I will say that my sister Crystal, I closed that loop today thinking like, oh, she's not going to text me back for 2 days. She texted me right back. I was like, I cannot answer that right now. I'm so sorry. I love you, Crystal. If you're seeing this, I love you. I'll get to it. So taking care of text messages, things like that, really look to close the loops because that can just get to you, I think, right? And communicate. Listen, Mom, I had to tell my mom, I love you. I can't talk to you about what you're eating every day. And I'm not saying that that's all she was doing, but I actually had to communicate. I need to slow it down just a tiny bit, right? But the communication that she understood was, I love you. We're in this unique situation where you're just not the only mom I have anymore. And I'm grateful to have both, but I need to keep up with everybody. Okay. And then last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, this is a big one for me. And I thank my career in hospitality. If you keep your sink empty, if you keep your plates and living room in check, I can promise you'll feel better. If you do your laundry and actually separate it and fold it and don't grab from the basket every day, you will feel more organized in your life. I challenge you. Next. What do you think, John Anthony? I'm ranting here again.
Well, I think boundaries are important, and learning to have boundaries so that you say no to things, and or this is not a good time for me to receive a text. Um, that's important. Otherwise, I'm taking care of others, but not myself, and then I'm being passive.
Right.
And then after a while, I can resent that I always take care of them and not me. And then now I'm going to take care of me, but it's at their expense. So because I'm being aggressive.
Now it's
And
passive aggressive.
and it's about learning how to be assertive where I'm respecting others and I'm respecting myself. Yeah. And the best way that I heard passive aggressive described is, imagine you're standing up and this big old dog's got his paws on your shoulders and he's licking your face while he's peeing on your leg.
Oh, that's rough.
That's passive
Overstimulated.
aggressive. Trying to make you think everything's nice, but doing something to sabotage that, that's passive aggressive.
You know what's passive aggressive while we're here, John Anthony? In corporate America, emails. And I'll tell you why. It's between you and one other person. And then do you know how you said something that they didn't agree with, or that you maybe called them out on something that they were supposed to do? When you get that reply, see who they CC'd. Did they add somebody to the thread? Oh, you bring my boss into it? Okay. CC district management. How do you like that, right? And I've seen this take place with full-grown adults who are at the senior level, and I remember being like, why? Why? Why can't we all just get the problem done? But I mean, passive aggressive is pet peeve. Pet peeve. Pet peeve. I'm so sorry. Yeah. How's your sink look though? Do you keep your sink organized?
I'm trying to get better, if we're being honest. For future me.
What does a normal day look like then?
I think
He's afraid to tell.
No, I'm trying to think of how to describe it because it's not like ill intent. It's just like, oh, I have to go to work now. So instead of just like putting my dish into the dish, like I just kind of like, okay, quick. And I know Paul is like the same way. And then I come home and there's 6 things in there. And I'm like, all right, listen, both of us, put it in the dishwasher. So I'm getting better with it.
No, I'm sorry. I was doing, you know what? You want to talk about boundaries? When I started taking the kids to school,
What, other parents or
One
something?
day, I think I went to go grab all three bowls at the same time, and I dropped
Um,
one. And so, what was my answer? All three of you are old enough to take your own bowl. And ever since then, they take their own bowl to the sink. Right. One less thing. They know it. Sure, they need to be reminded of a few simple steps, right? But I'm telling you also, that's just, I'm going off on a tangent here today, ladies and gentlemen. Parents, make your life easier. Like, really, kids are super capable of doing things. They're super capable of just like straightening up the pillows. They're super capable of helping or getting their room clean. They can make their beds. They can do all these little things. And I just say that because I think there's a lot of parents out there that really think that they have to do every single thing, and you just don't. You don't. It's survival of the fittest sometimes.
Maybe that would come down to like control with certain adults. Maybe like I'll just do it. If I do it, I know it's done, kind of thing. Done how I want and when I want. I'm not a parent. I don't know.
No, that happened. I have met people who like straight up said that like the mess bothers me, and I'm like, maybe you wouldn't be like this if like you told little Johnny that he's got to take care of it himself.
Mm.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's totally like made up too.
I
But I
do.
have
I
seen it.
do. I do have a sign in my kitchen that I had gotten from somebody. It says like a clean kitchen is a sign of a wasted life. Where it's kind of like, okay, but here's how I interpret the sign. Listen, because I've seen people who, their house has to be totally clean, don't touch anything, the kitchen's closed, I don't care if it's 8 o'clock and you're hungry, do not go in my kitchen. And it's like, what, like, we're not really enjoying our life here. But sometimes, if kitchen's not closed, you're hungry, go ahead, go in. All right, there's one thing left out. Like, I always believe in like a livable environment, like not messy, but like people live here and they're enjoying themselves, kind of thing. So like balance.
I No, I totally understand that, and I'm going to flip that coin real quick. And I'm not saying that what you're doing is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But what I will say, because I'm going to quote something real quick, and I'm not going to quote it perfectly, but I'm going to reference, we'll say, I can't. Oh, The Bear, that show on FX about, they open
Oh,
up
I
the
haven't watched
restaurant
it.
and the
Yeah.
guy. Did you watch it?
No.
Okay, so long story short, it's about, I'm sure for anyone who hasn't, it's about a very, very talented executive chef who has worked at every incredible restaurant that requires an extensive knowledge, tons of experience, and now he's come back to his brother's restaurant. His brother's unfortunately passed away due to losing his battle with mental illness. So you see the struggle, okay? But one thing that he said was, basically he was making them clean vigorously at the end of the night and during the shift. And a lot of the team members didn't understand it. And one person asked him, why do we do this? And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of, when you operate like this, you find out that you are capable of things that you never thought you were capable of. And I couldn't agree more, because the mindset that I was given, I was told to have in kitchens from culinary school and to my days in the actual field, was clean as you go. Clean as you go. Sweep. You got 10 seconds? How about this? You started boiling that pot of water. Are you
No, you're
standing there?
right.
Sweep. Sweep. You know what I mean?
Put away the spices you used.
Put away
After you put it in,
something.
yeah, no, I
Empty the
am good with
kitchen.
that. Yes.
Yeah. No, and that's just it, right? Because and I get it, because I've heard this. I don't want to say argument. I've heard this mindset before of like, well, what am I doing if I'm always cleaning? And it's like, maybe look at it this way: you're doing something. Like you said, like, what do you say? Your future self thanks you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So I know that when I go to sleep in the morning, I'm waking up and there's nothing in the sink, and I'm good to go.
That's my biggest point, because I used to be super bad with that. I'll do it tomorrow morning. And then I get up and it's like, dang it, why didn't I do it last night? I could have done it right now. So no, that's like helping my future self. But the balance aspect of, as I said, like where kitchen's closed, don't get anything. It's like knowing people who used to do that. Is that like when I first started dating my husband back when I was living at home, we were hanging out at like my parents' house, sitting there. It's kind of late, and I look over. He's like, I'm really, really hungry. Like I knew something was wrong. I'm really, really hungry. I'm like, well, you should have said something. Like we could have gotten a snack. He's like, no, because like when I grew up, my mom used to like yell at me for going in the kitchen after a certain hour and getting food when I was hungry. It's like, that's no way to live. So every time I see like my sign in the kitchen, it's like, enjoy. It doesn't have to be picture perfect, magazine ready all the time.
No, I agree with that. John Anthony, do you have anything? Because I feel like we haven't let you talk, but I do want to add something to what Jackie said.
Well, I've been following and agreeing, and I'm of you know true confessions. I'm a Libra. As
Oh wait, we have
as
the same birthday, right?
We're not
Close.
as no,
numbered,
it's
baby.
close, but as you are too. But we see both sides of a situation. It's always 51 to 49% for me. The problem is I can't tell which one's the 51 and which one's the
I knew you were gonna
49.
say that.
It's but I enjoy trying to find that. But I felt better when I've cleaned and my house looks organized, and I've enjoyed going through spurts not cleaning.
Sure, yeah.
And waiting until, okay, I've done it long enough, and now I got to clean everything up. That was when I lived by myself, and so I can see the value in both sides, like a good Libra.
I never thought about that, seeing the value of both sides like a good Libra. I'm gonna start using that because I am very like. I mean, you can ask, you both know me my entire life. You just never know which direction I'm gonna come from. It's not personal. It's just like you said. 10 seconds I agreed with one me, and 20 seconds later I agree with the other me. It's just well. So John Anthony, you haven't been privy to one of our lessons yet, but like I coach in a weird direction. We're getting it. I'm very, very proud of all of my students, but they used to be notorious for saying like, "That's not what you said last week," and I would point at I'd say, well, here, I'm going to say it on screen. I'd say, "What does it say?" It says flow state, not guaranteed
No,
direction state.
what did you used to say? I forget what you used to say, but never mind. I'll remember it later.
When you remember it, make sure you let
You
us
had
know.
you had a comeback of just kind of being like, oh, like I said I would do this, not this, or something like that. And we're like, okay.
That's like, apparently, like John Anthony said, being a good Libra. But I do
So
want to
the
say,
other thing about Libras is they have a period where they work hard,
that's me.
but then they
And I
need
stop.
that time to rest.
I do.
And if you get your time to rest, then you can go back and work hard. But if you don't get your time to rest, then that's creates a problem.
I'm glad you said that though, because that has actually been a personality trait of mine. I can go, go, go. I can coach. I can talk to people. I love everyone in my life, and everybody knows it. I, wear my heart on my sleeve. And then sometimes I'm like, I just need to go upstairs and lay down for an hour in silence. And my wife is great about that because after being with me for 11 years, like you said, she knows if I just let him go, I'm going to get so much more out of it when he comes back. And I'll get up, right? And there will be slight guilt. So then suddenly I'm changing the load in the dryer. Suddenly I'm making the bed real quick, straightening up. But, it's not really, it's half guilt, but also it's just like you said, it's like, all right, I got some energy and I need to get rid of it again. So what are we doing? But one thing I want to say before we shift gears, going back to what Jackie said and about her incredible husband, Paul, I think that's real. People feeling uncomfortable in many scenarios in their lives simply because of experiences that they had in their lives. And so, for example, Monica always makes fun of me for not being able to return things at retail stores when I have the receipt. And I'm not going to mention any names, but all I'm going to say is that my sister was here to talk about that one day, and my sister said, "Yeah, I don't return things either." So we found that it was common ground due to a certain someone's behavior in our childhood. But what I would like to say to that is if you recognize, if you know about yourself, or if you know that you're not always comfortable in certain situations immediately, make the effort to make somebody feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Like if somebody comes over my house, I do my best to like really make them feel like really just do whatever you want because I know there's some Pauls in the world. I know that there's some people who like they're like, oh, I don't want to be disrespectful. And it's like, you're not being disrespectful. But somebody in their life told them that those particular actions were disrespectful.
Mhm.
And other people just don't operate that way. So I would just say be mindful and supportive. And if you can even help guide those people through those moments, you can read on their faces, right? Like you said, you can see like, what's going on with this guy?
He was hungry.
Yeah.
Well, and he was fighting against something instilled in him when he was a child. You know, his
Yeah.
mother, you know, trying to have boundaries in her life and closing the kitchen at a certain time. And I don't know if he's from a big family where, you know, she didn't want to be having to go back in the kitchen
He was an only
4 or 5.
child.
Huh?
He's an only child.
Yeah, it's a big family. No. But you know, it's it's really fascinating to me because we have things that happen as children,
Mhm.
but we have the brain of a child. And then if we were to think about it as an adult, it would be different, but we don't. We hold on to that belief we came up with as a child. And so it's like, you know, I was listening to an interview today, and this man was he was from Jamaica. His parents were from Jamaica, and he had been part of this. His parents had been part of this movement, the Windjam or something, a ship that took them from Jamaica to the United Kingdom right after World War II. And the whole purpose was to help, you know, these people to build houses and you know, transportation, you know, for, you know, as they're rebuilding after the war. But because he was a black young boy and he was the only one in the neighborhood, you know, one day he was 5, and he was playing, and they were playing Superman or something, you know, they were using each other's sweater as a cape. And then this car pulled up and the boy went over to it. And then the boy came back and he took off the sweater of the guy on the interview and he threw it at him. And then he ripped off his sweater from the guy and he said, "I can't play with you anymore." And then he left. And so the gentleman who was being interviewed said, you know, what he learned at that age was that he was undesirable.
Learned or
And
thought? I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you finish.
well, he thought, you know, he came up with the belief that he was
Yeah.
undesirable,
Hmm.
you know. And I wanted to say to him, no, you are desirable. It's that person's problem that they don't want to play with you. It's not your problem that they don't want to play with you.
Right.
You're a desirable person. Just because they don't give you value doesn't mean that you don't have value. But when we're isolated like that and we're a child, we are the center of our universe as a child. Everything is about me when I'm a child. And so I have that mindset and I create that belief. And then I become an adult and my brain is developed and I can see things differently. I'm capable of seeing that, no, there was nothing wrong with me as a 5-year-old young boy. You know, it was that the other boy's father who had a problem because we were of different race. And I need, as you know, the now adult black man, I need to give myself that love that I wasn't able to give my child-like self because I was the center of the universe and it was my fault, as opposed to saying, no, it's their fault that they have a problem because I'm perfectly fine. So that's just one area that I saw there. And then when you have something like what you talked about with Paul, you know, you can't do things in the kitchen. You know, I grew up that you can't touch things, you know, so I would walk around with my arms, you know, because I was afraid to touch.
Mhm.
And it went, you know, because when I was a little kid, you know, my aunt who raised me wasn't going to childproof the house. She was going to house-proof me. So when I went to reach, your hand got slapped. No, you don't touch that. That's not yours. No, you don't touch that. So I learned not to touch things. And then I was an adult and I was still afraid to touch things that weren't mine because I didn't challenge that belief that got instilled in me as a child, was indoctrinated,
Mm.
you know? And
Indoctrinated.
then when my twins were born and they were a year and a half, and we went into a store with ornaments for Christmas, and I saw my 1.5-year-old daughters picking up things and touching things, and it was like, oh my God, oh my God, you know. But what my wife taught them and taught me is she would tell them, be gentle,
Mm.
be gentle. So she was coming from the love of what she wanted, not the fear, you're going to break it, don't touch it.
Mm.
And it's just a completely different mindset. So they would grab the object and they would look at it and they would be gentle and then they would put it back and everything was working great. They could touch things because that's what you do at that age. You know, you explore, you want to touch. And they were coming from the love because my wife gave them direction to be gentle, as opposed coming from the love of what she wanted, as opposed to the fear of what she didn't want. And no, I said, don't touch that.
No,
Mm.
I think that's something that Jackie, like you just said, Jackie and I, you know, um, I think one thing, I can't remember who the heck I said it to. I was talking to somebody about how at flow state, right? When it comes to um, the spiritual and mental health aspect of things, sometimes we're speaking from the heart, from experience, right? And so when we have our mavericks, our little people, right, we're really, I think, I'm going to speak for myself. My parents, um, to this day, sometimes you could say, like, hey, I'm going jet skiing. Well, a lot of people get killed on jet skis, and it's like,
Well, never mind.
right, I never want to do anything in life. Thank you, right? But Jackie and I last fall, and Monica and everybody else, all the coaches and parents help with this. We wanted to tell the kids, don't be scared, be smart,
Mm.
right? Evaluate, enjoy life, right? Do things that you want to do, but evaluate. Does that make sense? And because it's very easy to say, just like, no, you could die.
You know,
Well, then the kids like, I don't think people, I don't want to say parents, people realize the type of mindset that they could be creating for that individual, right? It's like, I think about this often lately, a lot of us, at least the three of us, I believe, the three of us here, I know we are in situations where we are loved and we have partners and we have beautiful children and we have beautiful families. And what I'm learning, and I say learning because I don't think I quite realized this before, is that, like, I'm just going to say ecosystems. There are some ecosystems that are just not, they don't have the stability. There's a lot of, you did this to my mother, you did this to my uncle, you did, and I'm thinking to myself, there's a lot of people, if you have a big family, you think that this is how people operate everywhere.
I wish my
Everywhere.
husband was here to talk about this because he's got plenty of experience with that, going from his family then to my family where no one's yelling at each other. He's like, this is how it is. I'm like, yeah.
Right, but if that person doesn't see another side of what the world
It's
can,
normal.
right, and then you think this is the world though, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be creating somebody who's like, they're reactive. Does that make sense? Because they just don't feel supported, right? And so, that's one of the many reasons that we do what we do at Flow State, is just because we want people to know that they have somewhere that they can go. And listen, All right. Crashed my car last night. I got a DUI. It's because my girlfriend and I were arguing. Da da da. All right. Okay. No problem. You okay? She okay? And that's really the feedback that you will probably get from us because, one thing that I really praise everybody in my circle for over the last year is every day I got a new day. And, nobody reminded me about what I did the night before, right? Unless it was necessary. And so I think that can be life changing. I think that can really be life changing. And so, if you wake up and you're like, hi, now you want to talk? Here we go again. Here we go.
I'm just going back to my room now.
Right. I give up. I give up. This is how the world operates. I give up on everything. I give up on love. I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. I give up. Maybe I'm taking it too far, but I'm telling you, sometimes people don't realize the type of fear and mindsets that they are developing in people inadvertently.
Well, see, because you get fear that you're not going to get the respect or the understanding, the love that you want. And so you fire from the amygdala. And so when you give up, it's fleeing. That's
Yeah.
it. I'm out of here. Because we don't know what else to do with that emotional pain. But I wanted to make sure I understand. So Jackie, Paul is an only child, and he would come to your family where all the chaos was going on.
Oh no, it was no. It was his family where the chaos was going on, and you know how Ryan said, "Oh well, that becomes normal because this is how the world is." Well, I remember like going to his house for like a holiday or something, and you have people literally like having full blown arguments at the dining room table, but then the spectators are like laughing like it's a sitcom or a comedy show, and meanwhile I'm sitting there like this is really like scary and uncomfortable. So right. Uncomfortable, and just like I'm looking, I'm like, please leave. He's like, I have to go like make a phone call. I'm like, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Do not get up from this table and leave me here by myself. I know somehow I'm gonna get roped into this, please. But then yes, he would come to my family, and then I remember like after a while, hanging out with my family for like holidays, or just like, hey, we're going over to my grandmother's for like dinner on Friday, like let's go. It was just like, oh, like this is how it is. Like what I experienced was not normal at all. I was like, I know, like I'm happy like I could bring you out of that and like give you these experiences to know like that's not how human interaction has to be.
No, that was that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, in a room of people like who just want to be heard, like how Ryan said, just very reactive. I don't like, there's certain people on his side that like I've never communicated with without them like yelling or talking like very loudly. Like they don't have to be yelling, but you ever talk to somebody who's just like, oh, well, like, no, like I like, and that's how he was used to communicating and having his experiences.
Yeah, and I think, listen, because I've had my own experiences. It was the reverse. Monica's family was high energy. They're still high energy. They enjoy having a good time into the late hours of the night in their home, responsibly.
Sure.
A little inebriated, over the limit, but parked. Mm-hmm. Nothing going crazy. And I remember being like, "What is this? What is this? People having fun after 8? This is ridiculous. This is insane." And it's caused a lot of issues because Monica and I were young, and Monica had never met anyone like me. And I remember her looking at me and go like, "You're crazy, bro. Like this is not going to work out, right?" What I'm saying is that exactly what you're talking about with Paul, right, caused a lot of divide. And the best way I can put it is I saw a video on Instagram the other day, and it said how it can be dealing with somebody who is afraid of love or who has been hurt in their life. And it was this little kitten in a box, and a big kitten went to go sit in the front, and the little kitten was attacking it, and the big kitten just face forward. Didn't do anything,
I love this video.
You've seen it?
One.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And then the big kitten goes back, and the little kitten calms down over time, right? Yes. And that's really how it was for me. Monica had to be like safe, loved, and I was like, yes. You know what I mean? Because the self-destructive behavior would come into play for me. I'd be like, oh, okay, you don't want to let me out of this situation that I know is completely safe and comfortable, but making me uncomfortable. I'm gonna flip out. I'm not going. How about that?
Like, we'll also enter relationships in cycles where, depending on how we were with either like our parents growing up or people close to us growing up, even if it was, I'll just use the word maybe like toxic or not healthy or something like that. Well, you know what? I still want to keep that relationship with mom or dad or whoever it is. So you'll enter relationships as adults and have those same dynamics because this is what I understand is love.
Yes, yes.
Like,
And you think it's love sometimes, right?
right.
You're like, I'm
Okay.
right, you're wrong. And it's like,
I'm
which
back
one?
into the cycle. So, I'm right back there with my parents. This is home.
Yes,
This is what I'm
yes.
used to.
And then the siding starts. Your family, your family. That's why you're like this. That's why you know what I mean? And it just doesn't stop. And then you got to call John Anthony.
Yes, and normal is relative.
That is so true. People forget that.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a noisy family growing up. There was a lot of fighting, arguing, between my sister and I, and then my aunt and uncle, and it was
Why is it so
it was
small?
just what we did. And my wife grew up as an only child, and so there wasn't any fighting because there was nobody to fight with. And so it's it's what you get used to, but so that's normal for you, but it's not normal for somebody else. When I grew up, the man next door used to come. We lived in the city, in row houses, and he used to come from next door because he said it was too quiet over his house. He could hear all the yelling over in our house, so he wanted to come over and be part of the yelling. So,
But you know what I find is I will say comforting before we jump onto this screen that I have here. I live on a street with great neighbors, I thank God every day because I'm finding later in life that you just can't replace good neighbors. There's just no substitute. And what we've learned is that we pretty much each have had some sort of incident on our front lawn from our respective families. Does that make sense? Nobody talks to anybody differently the next day. Nobody does, any of that. And it's not that nobody cares. It's just one of those things like, it's just not my business. It's just not, you know what I mean? And the reason I say that is because I think if we haven't all realized by now, we're all going through it in some way. And I see whomever arguing, and I'm not going to say nothing because I was arguing with my wife the other day and it was about something ridiculous. And maybe what you were arguing was ridiculous. And so all I'm going to say to that is that I'm here if you need me as a friend, but I'm not here to judge you at all because we're all working through things, how we work through it. And to me that's comforting, if that makes sense. To me it's comforting to know that we're like humans are humans. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like you really accept that everybody has something going on. It's easier. Does that make sense?
I think
You're not alone. You're not crazy.
we're all sold some. I feel like, maybe it is because of a social media influence, Instagram posting only the good things that happen in your life, but sometimes I feel like we're sold like, well, here's how life is, or relationship dynamics are, family like dynamics are. You have this like picture perfect idea of like how it's supposed to be. But even outside of here, like I've been like, no, like that's not it, because like we all have something going on. We're all human. We all have issues. Like we're not just this like picture perfect, bill of goods that have been sold. If you
No.
take out the variables, the human variables, the emotions, the mental health, etc.
Money, jobs,
Mm-hmm.
kids. You know what I mean? Kids and things that they're doing in their lives that can drive us to attack one another. And then you got to take a deep breath. And so to that, real quick, listen, we got about 9 minutes left, and I want to I want to really take the last 9 minutes to talk about module number 2. And so if you've been listening, thank you. If you're replaying this and you've listened this far, thank you. And we're going to take a second to dive into module number 2 because it is important. We have been talking about it a lot this entire episode on many different levels. And so here we go. We got module 2, and we're talking about the fear beneath the anger and how anger often masks deeper fears such as rejection, loss, or insecurity. And so I like these reflection questions, and they have what fears trigger my anger? What am I afraid of losing or not getting, as John Anthony often says? And I think that's a really important one. Like, that's the simple question right there, but we'll come back to it. How does anger protect me? And I took the liberty, John Anthony, to add, does it actually protect me? Because I've heard a few individuals say that if they lose their anger, they're going to lose their edge. How might anger prevent me from being understood and or accepted by others? And what would responding with curiosity look like? Jackie, what fears trigger your anger?
Definitely not getting something, because I know I got a bit emotional the other night, and in the midst of trying to understand with how I felt, I just feel like I lost again. Like, that's what I was coming around to. So I think that's a main part of the fear that triggers my anger or emotions.
Pause.
Yes.
You said that you feel like you lost again.
Mm-hmm.
John Anthony, I'm going to use one of my favorite lines from you, and it's you know, allowing yourself to think what's now will always be. And I have been stuck there too, and it's a tough one, right? It's really hard to say to yourself, "Oh wait, if I pull myself together, the sun will rise tomorrow. I will have an opportunity to get back on track," right? Sometimes you're just like, "No, why is anybody going to listen to me? I'm just going crazy again. Everybody hates me. Why do I do this to myself? I'm a failure. I'm a failure." But as John Anthony and other experts often say, you're not helping yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're not helping yourself when you speak to yourself like that. So that's what I was going to say to your piece about that. But I'm wondering if John Anthony has any pointers or insight on what fears trigger the anger.
Well, I think, like you said, it's losing something or not getting something. And, a lot of times it's just what I want, or what I want to do, or thinking that I'm not going to be able to do something. We had a real incident. I recently, for my one twin and my youngest daughter, I was I found out about something called an Ortho-K contact lens. And it's a lens that you put in your eye when you go to sleep. And then you wake up and you take it out, and it reshapes the lens of your eye so that you can go the whole day without needing glasses. And you
Wow.
see 20/20. And it's really great. And I'm very happy that, this eye doctor told me about it. And, I got two kids that don't have to wear glasses, and they see 20/20.
That's
And so
incredible.
that's really great.
Yeah.
But I get wakened this morning, and my oldest daughter, who's newer to the lenses, the 12-year-old and the 15-year-old. The 15-year-old is, got them second, and she goes, "Daddy, I can't get my contact lens out. I try and I can't get it out." And she was all upset and almost hyperventilating because she was in her fear.
Yeah.
So I just tried to stay calm. And I said, "Let's go into the kitchen," because the bathroom was being used. And I held the mirror for her. And she tried to get it out. And she said, I'm pulling on it, and it just won't come. And I said, "Can you slide it?" And she said, "No." So, I told her to take a break. And so she did. And then what I found out that I don't know how she came upon it, but what happened was she put two contact lenses in one eye.
Oh.
And the other eye didn't have it. And so when she went to take the lens out of the eye without the lens, that's why she couldn't take it out, because it wasn't in there. And she was
I've
trying
been
to
there.
do
Pulling
that
her
one
eye out.
first. And so she's pulling on her lens, And I joked later, about later in the afternoon, I said, "Well, it's a good thing that it didn't come out." And she says, "Daddy, it's not funny." I said, "It's funny looking back, hon. It wasn't funny at the time." But the thing is, we do something, and then and she was just in her fear, and she's going to have to go to patient first or whatever to have them help her.
They're gonna
But
have to
she
use lasers
eventually,
to take it out, and
yeah, but she, eventually found out that she had two in the one eye, and then everything was fine. But so often it's us that creates our fears because of our thinking, and we're reacting to past wounds that we have or that we've seen other people experience. And if we don't take responsibility for our thinking, then we won't be able to be responsible for our feelings. And then I'm not going to be able to be responsible for my experience in the sense that I create something coming from the love of what I want. I'm always responsible for the experience that I create, whether it's positive or negative, because I'm choosing it. But what I'm saying is, I'm not going to be able to do the loving things if I'm not paying attention to what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. So,
yes, we are getting down to the needle, but I'm sure we'll come back to all of this. I'm positive. But to what you just said, I want to jump to bullet point number two. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody, to me, this is it. When you're about to pop off, when you feel like you can't catch your breath, when you know something is going wrong, when you feel like, you're just about to hit one of those spirals, what are you afraid of losing or not getting? And going back to one of the things that I said on the podcast that John Anthony and I were on today, I just wanted to make a point that it's I think you need to sit with it. I think you really need to take your time. I think you need to take your time and really be honest with yourself, because I think sometimes we even have the ability to talk ourselves out and say, well, I mean, that's not really a reasonable thought. But is it the thought that you're having right now? Is it really what's energizing this anger spell? And if it is, you have to be honest about it. Does that make sense? And the best example, or not the best example, but the example that I will use is intimacy in couples. I was talking about this with my therapist. I think when it comes to intimacy, you can't just say, I want more intimacy. How do you want it? What do you want? What do you like? How would you like me to do it? If you don't tell your partner, well, you're just not doing it. What? I'm not doing what? I'm not doing what? You're just not giving me more intimacy. What? Right? You have to be honest. You have to be honest. And I know that that's hard for a lot of people, but long story short, what are you afraid of losing or not getting in that moment will help you realize what you're afraid of losing or not getting, but you have to be honest with yourself. And I know that can be hard. And rant. No, I mean, do you two have anything to add to that? What are you afraid of losing or not getting, and how do you navigate that process? That's going to be my closing thoughts. How do you two, in your experience, Jackie's heard it, John Anthony wrote the book on it. What do you do to analyze what you're afraid of losing or not getting in that moment? John Anthony first.
Okay.
No, Jackie, you're ready. Go.
Oh,
Jackie,
no. I was just gonna say.
Go. You're ready. I heard your breath.
When you had said is this thought really worth it or something like that? I've known what one thing I cannot do is beat myself up in the meantime of here I go again, blah blah blah, everyone I'm crazy or whatever. That'd be beating myself up, which in the end definitely makes it worse. Because one thing I learned is that okay, in this moment this does feel very real to me, and I can acknowledge how it's making me feel. But even the other night where I was upset, it was about something super small, but I was just kind of here I am, I feel like I'm losing again, and now I put off, and now I have to wait. And it's just in the moment, as I'm saying those things, I realize my fear, but it's I have to express it at the same time, and not just not face it, but just kind of realize I am saying, quiet part out loud. Okay, the issue itself is super small and fixable. It's definitely not that serious. But here I am saying all these the quiet parts out loud of what my fear is, because I'm reliving, maybe something else that is making me, I don't know, go through what I'm going through, and realize that. And now that I've stepped away, I realize what's going on. But in the moment, no, I think it can be challenging.
I want to say something real quick to what you said, because I feel like I know you well enough to know that if it's not a problem now, that maybe it could have been in the past.
Mhm.
But you helped me with this. You helped me with this, and I'll never forget it. Jackie once told me when I was in a very, very bad spot that she said, "You're allowed to feel how you want to feel in that moment, but we got to come out of it sometime." And I think that's so important. So going back to what you're saying, even right now, you're like, it was small, but did it
Mhm.
affect you? Then you have the right to acknowledge it, because you have to. Does that make sense? I think sometimes we as adults go, "Oh no, it's really not a big deal. I shouldn't be thinking this way." But is it weighing
Suppress.
on you? Right. You're
Suppression.
suppressing it
Suppression.
now.
And
You got to
then
sit
it's
with it.
worse
Let
later.
yourself
Yes.
analyze it.
I always say, just let me be upset. Just let me be upset. I'm just going to sit here quietly. I'm going to be a little baby and just let me be upset. And then I'll be
Couple
fine.
minutes. Right. Couple minutes, and then we gotta get back on the horse.
Yes.
John Anthony, what do you got? What are you afraid? How do you analyze what you're afraid of losing or not getting in those heated moments, we'll say?
Well, it's just about taking that short time out, just stepping out, even if it's for 15 or 30 seconds, and then, it's creating that new neural pathway response in my brain so that I respond to fear by thinking about what am I afraid of losing or not getting, as opposed to reacting to fear. And then what do I need to do to hurt or manipulate somebody else in order to them to change so that my fear can go away. And when I can learn to control myself, I'm going to be able to be successful more often because I can control me. If I try to control other people, I'm just going to be getting into power struggles.
Yeah. I want to take that opportunity to, what you said about, really recreating a neural pathway. I don't just take your tools and use them in my life. Jackie and I and everybody else, we use them in martial arts. And so how does that relate? We have had conversations with people who wanted to get better at boxing and kickboxing. We've had those discussions. We've asked the honest question, are you afraid of getting hit? A lot of people are reluctant to say that they are. Well, because I'm a man. I'm not afraid of getting hit. It's okay to say that you're afraid to get hit. It's a natural response, right? But now let's learn how to navigate the sport of fight. Does that make sense? And so I can speak from experience that when I really took the time to work on the smaller details and ask myself, what am I afraid of losing or not getting in the sport of fight? I don't want to get hit. I don't want to get knocked out. Tell you one thing, I've never been afraid of getting knocked out because of the pain, people seeing it, right? That was an old time fear, and that's a lot of fear that guys and girls face in gyms. And that's why sparring sessions end up getting out of hand sometimes, because somebody just cannot accept not looking great in front of everybody. As I got older and more comfortable with myself, if you will, I realized I need to train smart, keep my hands up, and not be afraid to lose in any format, because I'm holding myself back when I analyze it too much. Does that make sense? And so now, all these years later, my brain can take the time to see a punch coming at me and I react quicker. Does that make sense? Whereas when most people first start, just put their hands up and look away and just end up getting pummeled anyway, right? As you go on, as you train your brain slowly, right? Put those movements, get those reps in. And so changing the neural pathway and making it work for you. Final thoughts?
That was mine.
Just grateful to be here with you guys.
Mhm.
And thank you.
I'm grateful to be here with both of you as well. I'm looking forward to the future each and every day with both of you and what we're doing here. And I think that we had a great little moment here today that I'm sure I'll share with Jackie tomorrow to bring her up to speed. But for those of you listening, for those of you that might be tuning in either now or after, um, thank you. Thank you. You're worth it. You are very worth it. Your family is worth it. Your life is worth it. And when I say worth it, I mean in every format. Take that time to sit with your feelings. Take that time to be upset about things that you know are upsetting you. Analyze it. Think about what you can do, right? You can't control anybody else but yourself and how you react to it. So take that time to take that deep breath and ask yourself, what are you afraid of losing or not getting? All right. So listen, John Anthony, how can they get in touch with you if anybody wants to? I'm sure they do.
Phone number is 215-750-0323 or www.supportivealliance.net. All one word, supportivealliance.net.
Thank you, sir. And Coach Jackie, how can people get in touch with you?
You can find me at Flow State Martial Arts. Upstairs.
I thought you were going to list her Coach Jackie Instagram. But
but then I was like, wait, I want to give it out correctly because I haven't listed it on here before.
I know. Listen, we're going to do that. We're going to list it for everybody correctly next week. So
okay, here, Coach Jackie, one word, 3 E's, JACKIEEE.
And that is her coach Instagram that is connected to our Instagram, Flow State Martial Arts. And that is how you can get linked up to everything we're doing, including this podcast, and come watch our videos and come join us. But listen, I had a great time with you too, as always. I know Jackie is always excited to get to this day, as am I. And I know John Anthony, I think you are as well. And so I'm enjoying the adventure. And with all of that being said, it sounds like we're going to be back here next week to talk with all of you fine people again. But until then, it is 9:08 p.m. on March 5th, 2026. You have a great evening and you have a great weekend. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.